Good afternoon. I guess I'm the third speaker, so with little guidance, we know our way to the podium and the order of the appearance. Let me start by saying that it's a real pleasure, indeed, to be here. And I think the gathering of the world's Parliamentary Intelligence and Security Forum, it's very relevant for the times we are living today. A war is going on in the vicinity of our borders. Important decisions are being taken in NATO summits. In the EU, we have a new strategic concept, we have a new strategic compass, and we see things happening on the ground, trying to implement what has been decided both in NATO and in the EU with the contribution with all the allies and all the partners. Funny enough, because we speak about intelligence, I'm coming to this meeting straight from the change of command ceremony in the Romanian General Directorate of Intelligence for Defense and Military Intelligence Directorate. It was something planned in advance. The two leaders of these directorates had to retire because of age and because of law. Their contribution and the contribution of these directorates has been superb so far, especially since the conflict started in Ukraine, and I'm sure the performance of these directorates will continue to be superb. State Secretary Cojocaru spoke about security and implication. I thought from the military perspective I will approach a little bit more the intelligence part and speak more about the Russians' intentions, Russian motivation, and implications of the Russian actions in Ukraine. So in the past years, Moscow actions have revealed its intention to redefine its role on the international arena with an increased willingness to defy and confront the West on a long term. These efforts aim at portraying Russia as a major power, recognized by international community, have represented the engine of Russia's foreign policy since Vladimir Putin came into power. Aiming at ensuring its strategic depth, Russia tried to use all the instruments, economic, political, military, cultural, in order to maintain countries such as Belarus, Ukraine, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, or Kyrgyzstan, as well as the separatist regions in Georgia, under its influence. Moscow tried to extend partnership with these countries and also to create certain dependencies from an energy and security point of view. In some states, Russia's efforts to expand its influence were constructed on fertile grounds due to existent geopolitical, ideological, or religious links, but also due to some states' lack of sustainable alternatives. Some of the countries in the region had been dealing with severe governance and security issues and pragmatically looked for economic advantages. With Belarus, Russia extended the bilateral cooperation within the Union state, especially in the military domain. This has been evident in past years during the joint strategic exercises such as Zapad or Union Shield. Russia has been covering the main part of the cost associated to these exercises and also delivered weapon system to the Belarusian state. The recent use of Belarusian territory for troops deployment prior to their involvement in the invasion of Ukraine showed once again that in Russia's perception, keeping Belarus in its sphere of influence was necessary. Regarding Ukraine, however, these approaches were proven to be ineffective and Kiev began to gradually lean more to the West. In this context, the annexation of Crimea and Moscow's later actions not only did not weaken the morale of the Ukrainian population, but fueled its motivation to defend the national territory against the aggression. In Moscow's mind, its failure to keep Ukraine under its influence and the development of a distinct identity of the Ukrainian state are the direct results of the West interference. The demands, and you may recall the demands made by Russia to the United States and NATO in December last year, including therefore measures that would have significantly altered NATO member states' legitimate security concerns. Vladimir Putin's speech before the invasion depicted also another concern: the legitimacy of the national identity and existence of the Ukrainian state. Russia's invasion in Ukraine shows once again that Moscow is willing to use armed forces in order to maintain its spheres of influence. If this objective was achieved, Moscow would have likely replaced the current Ukrainian administration with pro-Russian leaders. The prior annexation of Crimea facilitated the Russian Federation Armed Forces' early success in the south around Sea of Azov shore. Nevertheless, Kremlin's main goals remain still unsatisfied. Kremlin is still away from achieving objectives which had been inaccurately assessed as easy to obtain during the initial phase of the invasion. From a legal point of view, Russia maintains the ability to block any UN resolutions regarding the issue using its veto right as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. It is worth mentioning that Russia illegally maintains troops in the Transnistrian separatist region of the Republic of Moldova, which could be used in the conflict if decided by Moscow. If Russia manages to achieve its current objectives in eastern Ukraine, a possible third phase of the operation might be launched to the south. In the same time, Odessa is subject to numerous missile attacks. Activation of Russian forces currently stationed in the Transnistrian separatist region would be a very dangerous situation. Expansion of conflict and deployment of Russian military capabilities even closer to NATO borders would significantly impact on the security situation of the alliance. The negotiation process seems to be at a standstill, and this will likely be the case in the future as well, as long as Russia continues to issue demands while trying to extend its influence using military force. Russia does not intend to relinquish control of already occupied territories. So, reaching a compromise in the negotiation remains unlikely, at least on the short term. Western sanctions have gone further than Vladimir Putin expected, and they affected important elements of Russia's economic resilience. Inflation is growing at a historic level, and the volume of imports is expected to decrease due to the disconnection of Russia from the West. The impact that sanctions will have depends on the spread of the future sanctions and Moscow's success in mitigating them. In the region, many of the former Soviet countries will likely be impacted by economic fallout from the crisis, while they depend on large diaspora communities in Russia who provide a steady influx of money back home. Whether the conflict will be settled or not on the short term, the decoupling of Russia from Europe is likely to last. The conflict in Ukraine has triggered changes in the hierarchy of European states' priorities for defense. Another pressing issue to be considered by world leaders is that of arms control. Even before the invasion of Ukraine, the global security and the European security in particular were affected by alteration in the concept and practice of international law to include arms control and non-proliferation. Prior treaties were either denounced or they were no longer effective leverages in the process of monitoring and control in this domain. The Russian invasion showed that even the treaties that were still in effect, such as the Vienna document, and the ensuring Russian international commitments regarding confidence and security building in Europe were breached. The result is a void of rules concerning armed forces, their size, types, and deployment, but also a lack of predictability in using conventional forces. On the long term, there is a danger that mistrust and lack of predictability could lead to a new arms race. Our aim is not to provoke conflict, but to preserve peace. As NATO Secretary General pointed out, the alliance has two fundamental tasks in response to Russia's aggression: providing support to Ukraine and preventing the war from escalating. European security will not be dictated by violence and intimidation, and NATO welcoming decisions of Sweden and Finland to apply for membership is the most recent proof in this regard. For Romania, it is obvious that the conflict that takes place in the vicinity of our borders has a security impact. Any further advance would enable the development of Russian military capabilities even closer to our borders, with significant consequences for the alliance from an early warning perspective. Romanian armed forces will continue to support efforts to consolidate NATO's eastern flank, keeping in mind also that the geopolitical relevance of our country has increased, and especially in the current context, its stability is even more important to the region. Thank you.